So Bitdefender already had some presence through partners in the region. But there are a couple of things that are going to be affected by the acquisition. The first is the acquisition also brings Harangi's brand to the Bitdefender family, right? And Harangi in the region was a known brand, particularly in terms of the excellence of the offensive services that they provided. So that's obviously going to help. In addition to that, we have a team, and this is a team across all of the different functions in the organization is here, including a sales team, partnerships team, et cetera, that's going to help expand the footprint with more depth because we have a local team rather than relying exclusively through partners. Now, Bitdefender sells through partners exclusively, but now we have a team that's closer to the ground. And I think particularly for Asia, where you've got a lot of different markets that have subtle nuances in each of them, that's going to be particularly important. So that's kind of in terms of physical presence. The second thing is specific to the MDR, Managed Detection and Response. Prior to the acquisition, Bitdefender had a SOC based in Texas and a SOC based in Romania. And that helps, obviously, with local time zone support for the customers in North America and in Europe. However, the SOCs are always 24/7. What we're now able to do with the new SOC for MDR based in Asia is that we have what they call a follow the sun model that's possible. That means that we can hand over from one SOC to the next. There's a specific handover period and procedure throughout the day, so that we now no longer need to have our top SOC analysts doing night shifts, right? So everybody's basically working during their time zone, and yet we support 24/7. So Harangi on the product and engineering side, Harangi was exclusively focused on cloud security for the last 5 years. And we've built a lot of expertise on the product side, on the engineering side, including on the customer success, sales side. Like, we have a machine that's running around cloud security posture management and cloud infrastructure entitlements management. What was missing on the Harangi side was that we didn't have a broader platform. There's a lot of talk of consolidation at the moment. Organizations with limited resources struggle to manage all of the different security pieces that they need to stay secure. And so they're looking for platforms that allow them to have broader coverage with a single pane of glass, right? We were focused exclusively on cloud security, but the reality is you're not only on the cloud and you're not only in the cloud management plane, which are the areas that we were covering. Bitdefender has an existing portfolio of solutions for workload protection in the cloud with, some very advanced Linux endpoint protection and Windows endpoint protection for your servers that are also essential to protecting your environment when you're in the cloud. So together we have a portfolio of cloud security that's much stronger. We've also got infrastructure as code as in early access. And so we're basically getting to what is called a cloud native application protection platform for Gartner speak CNAPP, or cloud native security that covers all of the different parts of securing your cloud infrastructure in a single platform. Now, on top of that, Bitdefender's GravityZone isn't just a cloud security platform. It's also a security and risk analytics platform for all of your needs, right? We were talking about MDR. Yes, you can have it managed if you like with MDR. We cover traditional endpoints, laptops, workstations, in addition to the servers that we were already talking about. Various different ways of doing virtualization that you might have on-prem. We've got email security, we've got mobile security. So from this single pane of glass, you have all of that. So we became a cloud native security platform, but also just a security platform. And that's going to be really helpful. I mean, everybody hears about the same thing. There's not enough skilled security practitioners to manage the expanding attack surface. So we've got a problem on kind of two sides. One is attack surfaces are expanding. You've got your IT, which is sprawling more and more, right? And yet you don't have enough people to properly secure it. So what you're going to need is tools that help you to manage all of that. That's why consolidation is one of the ways that you're going to be able to do that. Instead of having a number of different point solutions for each of these new attack surfaces, that your teams are going to all have to learn, right? You have a single one, and that's already going to manage, reduce the load that they need to manage as well. On top of that, there's going to be the ability to manage these things simply. You need security that is extremely performant. And at Bitdefender, we always talk about efficacy. Protection is something that we're really, really strong at. We want to block the attacks, not just tell them that they tell you that they happened, right? But it needs to be really easy to manage for people that don't have a team of 30 experts, because most organizations don't have that skilled team of 30. So can you do it with 3? And so there's going to be a lot in terms of the user experience there and automation that's going to help us to do that, right? In addition to that, once you correlate more signals, which you're able to do in this platform, right? We're talking about like risk analytics in particular. You can take the signals from all of these different dimensions of risk and combine them to something that is a lot more accurate, right? It's not just looking at things in isolation. Oh, is there a vulnerability here? Is this connected to the internet? Is this user particularly at risk? So instead of having these various layers, I like to use my hands as an example, right? Like if in this layer you've got these kind of holes, and in this layer you've got these holes, and you see them here, you don't know which holes to fix, right? Now, if I tell you that the holes are like this, okay, but then maybe, actually there might be just only a very, very small number of holes that go through and through, which are the ones that you're really going to need to care about. And if you can provide that to organizations, that small team can all of a sudden, kind of move mountains in terms of actual impact to the security. I definitely think I think it's definitely, we're still far from the limits of feasibility. There are going to be limits to that. As an amateur, I don't know, medieval defender that doesn't have any armor, do you think you can resist against the much better equipped attacker that comes with horses and trebuchets and whatever? Probably not. However, if you're well protected, you should be able to defend against a more sophisticated attacker. That doesn't mean that you're going to be able to defend against everything, and particularly nation states, if you're not ready. However, there's a lot that we can still do in order to get you decently well protected. A lot of the issues that we see, if you look at things like the cost of a breach report from IBM or the Verizon, data breaches in review, what you notice is that a lot of the problems are relatively easy to, they aren't super advanced attacks. The majority of attacks that people are seeing in practice today are not all of the advanced ones. Now, we hear a lot about the extremely advanced ones, but the ones that most people are getting day in, day out, they're business email compromise. They're going to be cloud misconfigurations, which is 11% of issues. It's going to be phishing. It's going to be stolen credentials, right? Those already account for, I think, 50% of attacks. We're not yet talking about 0 days and things like that are going to be much more difficult to protect against. So I think there's a lot of way to go that we can and that we believe that we will get to support particularly those organizations with, let's say, fewer means or that are more stretched in terms of their security teams. To manage the detection and response, if you think about what problem it solves, the problem it solves is organizations that either don't have the skills or don't have the resources or are not at the scale where it makes sense for them to have 24/7 monitoring of their security. Now, if you were thinking about security in the in the real world, you put some cameras, but then you need someone monitoring those cameras. And so you've got services that do that, right? Because you can't stand there all day long looking at the cameras if it's your home. And this is exactly the same thing. What we are able to do with managed detection and response is have extremely skilled SOC analysts that are continuously monitoring the infrastructure of all of these different customers 24/7. Whereas in order to get 24/7, by the way, you need a minimum, realistically, of something like 6 analysts to be able to cover all of the shifts, right? So you're paying 6 people to monitor this full time. If you're a small organization, that is massive, right? And they're not active all of the time, but they need to be on call all of the time, right? And so obviously, if you have a service like managed detection and response, that helps with that. On top of that, our managed detection and response sits on top of our security stack. That includes endpoint protection, detection and response sensors on XDR that provide coverage of cloud, of email, of your productivity suites, Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they get that full picture. They know what's going on because they're very, very plugged into what is happening in the world, the threats that are occurring, because we have really good threat intelligence feeds. And so they can basically, you have an expert working for your company at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost you if you wanted to do it yourself. Now, very large organizations don't need that. They have their own. But those are kind of much more limited in terms of the number of organizations that are able to do that at that level. And by the way, to retain the talent, even if you are able to hire these SOC analysts, do they have a job that is sufficiently interesting to keep them engaged in such a competitive environment that we have today?